So what the heck is a fragrance primer? Have you ever heard of this term before? Do you use a fragrance primer with your fragrances? What about a fragrance enhancer or a fragrance booster? Do you use these products to enhance and boost and prime your fragrances? Are you familiar with Canvas and Concrete's fragrance primer? This is probably my first discovery of a fragrance primer. It's an all-natural scent-free primer that keeps your fragrance true and lasting as long as you. As you can see the product on the back. So this is no longer being made. This was my very first introduction to a fragrance primer. I used it for a bit, then I stopped using it because I discovered a few other fragrances that I can prime my fragrances with, like the Eccentric Molecules fragrances. But that was the very first fragrance primer I was exposed to, and I enjoyed the idea of priming and extending the life of my fragrances. If you're into the idea of extending the life of your fragrances, you're going to want to not miss this video because I'm going to tell you all about fragrance primers, fragrance enhancers, and fragrance boosters. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. We're talking about fragrance primers, fragrance enhancers, or fragrance boosters. Let me know if you have a favorite fragrance primer or an enhancer or a booster. Do let me know what they are. Put a comment down below so I can find out. And so yeah, fragrance primers are really great to use. It's almost like layering fragrances, but basically you're going to be extending the life of the fragrances. You would do it with various fragrances that are sold as primers or enhancers or boosters, or you can do them with fragrances like Eccentric Molecules fragrances because they're pretty much molecular and single note fragrances, and once you get to familiarize yourself with that particular note, you can use it to enhance a fragrance or basically just boost it up or prime it to extend the life of the fragrance. So that's what the Eccentric Molecules fragrances are perfect for. They're sort of like this fragrance or this fragrance primer, but you can use those to do that with or just wear them individually and have this very interesting musky scent, especially with something like Molecule 1. So the first fragrance primer, as I said, I was exposed to is Canvas and Concrete's original fragrance primer. It's no longer being made. If you can find it out there, I highly recommend it. But brands are now releasing their own versions of enhancers, primers, boosters, and things like that. So I'm going to give you some products here so you can find out what they are and perhaps take advantage of getting them, using them with your fragrances. You can do kind of like a mixology thing. It's almost like layering, but some of them don't have any smell. Some of them have quite a bit of smell. So basically they'll boost up the fragrance, create a different type of a fragrance, remix the fragrance, if that's a word I could use with fragrances, but just kind of create different versions of fragrances. The first of which I'm going to talk to you about is Sugar Addict from the house of Born to Stand Out. And as you can see on the bottom of this bottle, it says fragrance sweetener. Do you have a fragrance that needs to be sweetened up? That's what this is for. And it's not only to be used with this brand's fragrances, you can do it with any fragrances out there, as long as you think it's going to mesh perfectly, or not necessarily perfectly, mesh okay kind of a thing. This is sugar, cocoa, tonka, vanilla, cinnamon, rum, labdanum, coffee, and cashmeran. It's a very complex fragrance on its own, and I think some people wear this on its own. You can totally wear it on its own. But if you have a fragrance sort of like this, has similar notes like this, spritz this down first, let it dry, and then spray the other fragrance on top. This would be the base note, also the primer, so it'll extend the life of the fragrance as well. And then, you know, mixing in with similar notes and things like that. I found that this was perfect for a fragrance like Jazz Club from the house of Maison Margiela. And I feel like Jazz Club is pretty weak, so this one spritzed on as a base note, let it dry, spritz the Jazz Club on top, and you're going to extend the life of that fragrance quite a bit. So this is a great primer, I find. It's called a sweetener, a fragrance sweetener, but it's, for me, more of a primer. Basically, it's basically being treated like an extender, life extender pretty much. Extends the life of a fragrance. So another brand, BVLGARI, has a really great collection of fragrances called Magnifying, and this is Magnifying Bergamot. Instantly fell in love with this one, although I didn't buy it right away. I kept going back and back to Neiman's, smelling them because there's a bunch of them. They have patchouli, they have rose, they have myrrh, vanilla. I really fell in love with the Bergamot, and when there was a promotion, I took advantage of getting a bottle. They're quite pricey, but they're very simplistic fragrances. It's basically Calabrian bergamot. That's all it is. And perhaps you have a citrus fragrance that needs to be boosted, primed, and enhanced. I mean, bergamot seems to be, as a fragrance, dominant note, seems to have longevity issues. So basically, let's say, for example, Le Labo's bergamot fragrance that's very popular, and a lot of people say it doesn't last. So this is what I would do. Spritz this on first, let it dry, then spritz the Le Labo on top, and this will act as a base, it'll act as a primer, and it extends the life of the fragrance. I'm not saying it's gonna, make the fragrance last 24 hours, but sure, it'll give you a few more hours of longevity if you want to extend the life of a fragrance. And for me, the bergamot is such a realistic bergamot scent. It smells great on its own, and if you want a simplistic fragrance by itself, you can do that with these magnifying fragrances from BVLGARI, or like I said, extend the life. Whatever you think the bergamot will work with, you're gonna kind of have to put some thought into it. Think is it gonna work with this fragrance? Is it not gonna work? Like, I wouldn't put this with like an oud fragrance. It's gonna basically the oud is basically gonna dominate the bergamot, but a lot of citruses will work. It's basically, for me, I think this extends the life of citruses, other citrus fragrances. And then, of course, if you want to extend the life of a vanilla, they have a vanilla, patchouli, myrrh, so on. Next, we're going to talk about a few DS and Durga fragrances. They're both enhancers. We've got two of them. We've got I Don't Know What and Leatherize. I'm going to get to Leatherize in a bit. First, I'm going to talk to you about I Don't Know What. I absolutely love I Don't Know What. It's that kind of a fragrance that's molecular, so you might come off anosmic to it. You might not be able to smell it. In fact, it's a lot of different molecular notes. You can wear it on its own to create your own musk when it hits your body, and your body, creates its own musk and things like that, or enhance other fragrances or prime them. It could take the place of the fragrance primer from Canvas and Concrete. This has notes of Ambrox Super, Firsantol, Civettone, ISOE Super, Vetiver Acetate. There's a little bit of muskiness in here. Actually, not a little, a lot, but it's quite woody, and it's a bit fresh as well with the bergamot. In fact, you can actually probably combine the magnifying bergamot from BVLGARI with I Don't Know What. It'll enhance the bergamot that's in there. But I would use this to, enhance light fragrances that have a ton of notes. They don't come off complex, and they're very, very fresh, kind of a thing. In fact, this would enhance citruses. I would think it would enhance aromatics and herbal fragrances. Anything that's juicy, citrusy, and you want to give it a boost of musks and also woods, because it's very woody and also very musky and perhaps a little ambery as well. And that's what I would do, is basically do that with that. So spritz this on, spritz the I Don't Know What on first, let it dry, then spritz the other fragrance that you're trying to enhance or prime or boost. That way this will act as the base, and it'll keep the other fragrance from dissipating faster, if that makes sense. So I Don't Know What is a great fragrance on its own as well. I love that fragrance as a fragrance on its own. It smells great, especially in the heat, when you don't want something very strong and challenging. You just want a light scent off of you, and that smells great. But on the other hand, Leatherize is also an enhancer. As you can see, it says fragrance/enhancer. I don't know what you can do with this one. I think it would be good to enhance other strong fragrances. Like for me, if I were to combine I Don't Know What with Leatherize, I don't know what would completely disappear under Leatherize, because Leatherize is so super strong. You need a strong or stronger fragrance to to connect with it. Otherwise, I don't know. It's also leather, very, very strong. Perhaps leather fragrances, ouds. I'm thinking of amouage fragrances like Interlude. Those kind of fragrances, if you want to change them a bit, boost them a bit, enhance them, make their longevity longer, kind of a thing, you can do that with those kind of fragrances. But for me, don't even connect it with any fresh fragrances, because it's going to dominate and kill the other fragrances much faster, and all you're going to smell is Leatherize. So this one is a bit more complicated. It's a fragrance on its own, like literally a full, very complex fragrance on its own. But if you think of the right fragrance to do this with, you might be able to accomplish it. I was thinking recently I was going to try this with the Psychedelique from Javoy, since it's a really strong patchouli, earthy patchouli, ambery patchouli fragrance. This might work with it. It might clash a little bit. I'm willing to give it a try, but you got to find complex fragrances like that to prime or enhance, leatherize with it. So again, this is with caution. Don't do it with lighter fragrances. I wouldn't do it with anything like this magnifying bergamot or anything. You've got to have a really substantial fragrance to do it with. So that's Leatherize from DS and Durga. So a few more. We've got Hermetica's Source 1, this one right here, and this one is changed. It's no longer coming in a bottle like this, so double check where you buy your fragrances from. Source 1 is basically Hermetica's primer. It's basically bergamot, woods, and amber, so it's kind of fresh, woody, and ambery, and it's a bit nondescript. You can wear it on its own and it'll act like I don't know what, maybe a bit more substantial. But then you can combine it with other fragrances from this house or other fragrances from another house to act as a primer, basically fragrance primer, canvas and concrete's fragrance primer. So it's actually a nice, pleasant scent. I like the combination of the amber and the woods and the bergamot. It smells really, really great. So you can use it on its own or prime other fragrances with it. But the other thing with this Source 1, Hermetica's fragrances are all kind of oily. You can rub them. It's very linear, as in there's no heart, there's no top heart base notes with this fragrance. So it's a great one. Try it. I like it on its own, or you can use it to prime other fragrance, which is what we're trying to accomplish here. Last but not least, this fragrance, or actually it's a fragrance enhancer, primer, booster, all in one. It's Future Society's Optimal Habitat, this one right here. So this is kind of got a milky consistency, and there's hardly any scent there. For me, this one acts like physically like this fragrance primer from Canvas and Concrete. You spritz this on, you let it sit, of course, you do that with everything. Let it sit at least 30 seconds, if not a minute, then spritz the other fragrance on top so that you can extend the life of the fragrance. This one, they say up to 24 hours. I'm not sure you can accomplish up to 24 hours, but maybe 2-3 hours. Yeah, you should definitely try that with this Optimal Habitat. Apparently the notes are Arginine and Citric Acid, and they create a balanced foundation to sustain the life of the fragrance. So give it a try and see what works. Sometimes some might not work, sometimes some might. A lot of these primers, enhancers, and boosters don't have a smell. Some do. This one I don't have a smell with. It doesn't smell like anything except for maybe some molecular notes like Ambroxan or the ISOE Super, but they're very, very faint for me. But either way, this is Future Society's Optimal Habitat. Are you guys familiar with that? So now that we've gone through all of the official enhancers, primers, and boosters from brands, I think one of my favorite brands to do the enhancing, priming, and boosting of your fragrances, it's Eccentric Molecules fragrances. For me, the best ones are Molecule 1, Molecule 2, and Molecule 4. 3 and 5 are so complex with their smell already, it's a bit more challenging, but you can do it with those fragrances as well. But for me, the best one is Molecule 1. Let me find Molecule 1 here. Molecule 1 looks like this. And basically, it's ISOE Super, which smells like cedar and a little bit of sandalwood combo. People are anosmic to this. They won't smell it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And after that, it'll smell really strong. For me, it took me a while to get used to this. I've smelled people wearing this. It's a very popular, very cult following for this one. And this one you could do the priming with. And you just basically spritz this down, let it dry, and spray the fragrance on top. And it acts as a primer, and it'll also add a bit of a woodiness to your fragrances, because it is, after all, a synthetic form of cedar and also a little bit of sandalwood. Then we've got Molecule 2, which is Ambroxan. This one has hardly any smell. It's very, very faint compared to ISOE Super in the Molecule 1. So this one you can use as a primer as well, or an enhancer or a booster. Basically, it's going to prolong the life of your fragrances. It adds a bit of a muskiness. It's supposed to be a synthetic version of ambergris, but they don't smell alike. It's just going to extend the life of your fragrance a little bit. It's mostly going to act a lot like Canvas and Concrete's fragrance primer. But this one has a cult following as well. It's Ambroxan. A lot of fragrances are using that note now. Next it's molecule 3. As I said, this one's very complex. It actually smells like a finished fragrance. It's utilizing vetiviral acetate, which smells of grassy, earthy, woody vetiver. You can actually use this against other vetiver fragrances because it's going to pretty much dominate. So against other vetiver fragrances that you're having a challenging time with the longevity, so use this, spritz it down, and let it dry, and then spray the other vetiver fragrance down. It does have a smell, so this is going to change the smell of your fragrance for sure, because this is very strong in its smell. So it's different than the first two. But if you are having some problems with vetiver, or you think you can add vetiver to another fragrance, you can do that with molecule 3. And then we've got this one here, molecule 4, which I absolutely love. It's Javanol, which is basically synthetic form of sandalwood, but it's a creamy, milky, lactonic sandalwood. It smells really wonderful. I really love this particular fragrance. I've used quite a bit of it. It smells fantastic. And this one, you can add it to other sandalwood fragrances to extend the life of them, because maybe you're having some difficulty, having your fragrance last longer, which focuses on sandalwood. Or combine it with vanilla, I think it works. Combine it with musk, I think it works. Combine it with oranges, I think it totally works. And you could do that and create with your own special fragrances when you're combining this creamy sandalwood with the other notes. And this is molecule 4. Definitely one of my favorites from that line. Last but not least, it's molecule 5. And this one is very complex with the smell as well. It smells like Cashmeran, so a little goes a long way. This one, I find it really challenging to combine with other fragrances. I feel like if you find something that's Cashmeran dominant, you can use this to enhance that. But it's super potent, like the molecule 3. It's actually a fragrance on its own, but it smells of woods, musk, amber, earth, the whole combo together. And so yeah, if you're looking for something to enhance a Cashmeran fragrance, or you can find something that will combine well with this Cashmeran smell in molecule 5, you can do that with. Again, once again, spritz this first, let it dry, then spritz the other fragrance on top. But that's molecule 5. And then also I should recommend, we've got a bunch of molecule 1 plus fragrances. For example, molecule 1 plus patchouli. I think it's a great, once again, primer booster. This time they have molecule 1, which is the ISOE Super, that smells like cedar and a bit of sandalwood, with patchouli. So if you have a patchouli fragrance that's needing some boosting or priming, combine that with it. Then there's a citrusy one here, ISOE Super. Well, it's molecule 1 plus mandarin. It will enhance the life of mandarin or citrus fragrances for sure. Or if you have an iris fragrance, once again, you can do that with molecule 1 plus iris. Really great fragrances. I love eccentric molecules for just wearing them on their own, or combined with other fragrances. So the next one is this one, molecule 1 plus ginger. I think that would be great for any ginger fragrances, or if you think you have a fragrance that will enhance with a ginger note, use that for that. Then we have a molecule 1 plus black tea, this one right here. And if you have a tea fragrance that needs to be enhanced, primed, or boosted, use that. Again, ISOE Super is what molecule 1 is, which smells of sandalwood, actually more cedar and a little bit of sandalwood. And last but not least, molecule 1 plus Gaiac wood. It's basically very woody. It's a bit creamy. It's a bit smoky. And I was actually layering molecule 1 plus Gaiac wood with Maison Crivelli's ingredients 072012. That combo was so good, but I also tried it with the black tea version as well. Both of them worked really, really well. Then we've got these really great fragrances from What We Do With Secret. It's called Monoscent G and Monoscent E. Monoscent E is mostly like molecule 1. It's a different type of an ingredient, synthetic note, that smells like ISOE Super. It's basically called timber silk. Smells of cedar, but very velvety, smooth, and buttery creamy. A distant relative to ISOE Super. So Monoscent E will act like molecule 1 if you perhaps prefer that one. For me, the star of the two, either Monoscent G or Monoscent E, is Monoscent G. Monoscent G is Galaxolide Super. It's a synthetic musk and very clean, sweet, and musky floral scent used widely in fragrances. What I was doing with this one for a while is using this as the base. So I would spritz this on, let it dry, and spritz it on top with Kiehl's Original Musk. Both of them are musks. This is Galaxolide Super. In fact, Kiehl's uses this in their fragrance as well, from what I've read. So basically, you're boosting, priming, enhancing Kiehl's, making it last longer by combining it with what we do with Secret Monoscent G. What we do with Secret Monoscent G is so super sexy. I'll absolutely love it on its own. It's a synthetic musk with a clean, sweet, musky floral scent used widely in fragrances, as I said. Anyway, hopefully that gives you some ideas of how you can prime, enhance, or boost your fragrances with this guide to primers, enhancers, and boosters. Let me know if you have any other secrets. Let me know if you have any other enhancers or primers or boosters that you use that are legitimate, like these ones from, you know, DS and Durga and BVLGARI and HERMETICA and so on. Do put a comment down below so I can find out. But other than that, guys, if you have any questions or comments, please list below as well. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one.